Owner of a broken heart. Oh yeah. Owner of a broken heart. That tells it all. Peeps.
I think we've all been there, huh?
Absolutely. Like to start by correcting something I said last week. We're back, the dating doctor. Carlos Mendez here, your dating doctor. Got our PA, Physician Assistant Steve Estrada.
Hello.
And we got our weekly guest, Sean Sneed.
Hello, hello.
Well, last week I described myself in my marriage, and I stated that I've been happily married for 16 years, and that was incorrect. I have been happily married for 9 years, but we've been together, my wife and I, for 16 years. So wanted to correct that. So there you have it.
So it's only been it just felt like 16 years.
It felt like 16 years. Actually, it's been very enjoyable. We're back. This is season 1, episode 2 for all of you binge listeners. I had a couple of bingers and binging us all last week. Well, today we drop S1-E2, season 1, episode 2. And folks, today's episode is titled The Foundational Dozen. 12 Principles Foundational to Great Relationship. You grasp this topic, and we believe you'll be starting to move in the right direction. You know, life is about choices and habits, and on the Dating Doctor, we strive to build your wisdom so that your choices become a springboard to great habits. Have you heard of the old adage that says, sow a thought, reap an action, sow an action, reap a habit, sow a habit, reap a character, and sow a character, reap a destiny? And it's well said, and it's by Ralph Waldo Emerson. There's a lot of wisdom in that. And one more maxim I'd like to share with you is we'd like to help you get there, but that is to live, to love, to learn, and to leave a legacy. And that's by the late Dr. Stephen Covey, which I consider to be my mentor. And we will present and lay out today's materials in the context of 3 concepts. The first concept is deserve versus need. The second is principles versus values. And the third concept is what it means to be principle-centered. Now, each of these concepts are deserving of their own 1-hour talk show, and we will address them singularly and thoroughly in the near future. But today, put your scuba gear on because we're going to go deep. This information is very deep. And let us begin by providing you with a brief description of each. So we're going to hand it over to our PA, Stephen Estrada. Go ahead, Steve.
All right. Our first concept we're going to go over is deserve versus need. This concept speaks to the idea that our world responds to deserve, not need. We don't reap a harvest because we need it. We reap a harvest because we deserve it. In other words, we don't cross our fingers and hope for a harvest. We farm and plant for that harvest. You may need that harvest, but until you do what is necessary to get it, you won't deserve it. Another example, you may need and desire good health and fitness, but until you eat right and exercise regularly, you won't deserve it. Another example, you may need or desire financial independence, but needing is not the qualifier. You must do what is necessary to attain financial independence. For example, get an education, prospect for new clients, put in hard work, and collaborate as directed. We also need to demonstrate discipline and selflessness, to name a few. It follows then that to need or to wish for a good relationship is not good enough. You must adhere to basic common sense principles to arrive at deserving at a good relationship.
Now, the second concept is principles versus values. Now, I want to start by stating that values are internal and therefore subjective. We all have values, but they differ from person to person. Someone may value money, others their time, while others their family. Some may value recreational drugs, etc. The point is that they are internal and subjective. On the other hand, principles are external and objective. They are the universal laws that govern human relationships and individual effectiveness. To further grasp the concept of these universal laws, take a principle like respect. Now take the opposite of that principle, disrespect. It does not take a rocket scientist to figure out that one would be infinitely more effective in relationships applying respect versus disrespect. Wise individuals work at aligning their values with principles. Now, enough on that for now. Let's jump to the third concept.
All right, principle number 3, living a principle-centered life. Today we'll cover 12 principles that are foundational to effective relationships. Armed with the wisdom that principles govern relationships and individuals, you stand to gain from incorporating these principles into your everyday actions. Now, people tend to make decisions and behave based on their centers. So there are many centers. For example, let me name a few. You could be self-centered. You could be pleasure-centered, money-centered, church-centered, spouse-centered, even family-centered. And these aren't necessarily bad things. But for example, you could be a self-centered individual. And that's a person that makes decisions based on themselves. We tend to describe such behaviors as selfish. Similarly, those that make decisions based on pleasures, for example, resemble a self-serving model. Now, you can begin to imagine the decision-making process and behaviors that flow from individuals centered on money, spouses, church, addictions, etc. By contrast, principle-centered individuals, and that's the goal here, process information and behave in ways that reflect their understanding and obedience of principles. When your behaviors and decisions flow from principles such as respect, compassion, love, and humility, to name a few, you can begin to see how your level of effectiveness in relationships will improve drastically. And this is going to be everywhere, at work, with family, with your spouse, with friends, and with associates. And how it would differ, say, from someone who is centered on values such as self, addictions, and pleasures. I sincerely hope this is the beginning of something that's going to click for you. That said, we hope that you center yourself around these 12 principles and many others that we're going to be representing. We call these the great virtues. Okay, Doctor?
Well, let's go ahead and dive headfirst into this. The foundational dozen, the 12 principles foundational to great relationships. So I think we'll, before we go on our first break, we have time to cover about 3 of these. So go ahead, Mr. PA, and cover the first one.
All right. And before we do that, I'd just like to mention that you're listening to The Dating Doctor on KCAA 1050 AM, 102.3 and 106.5 FM in the Inland Empire. All right. The first one we're going to cover, and this is a big one. That first principle is love. The definition of love, and this is going to be up for debate, Doctor. The first definition you see here is an intense feeling of deep affection. Ooh, we all had that feeling, right? Here's another definition, a person or thing that one loves. But I like the third definition, which is the verb, and it's defined as care very much for, be devoted to. And by the way, the opposite of love is hate. Doctor?
Absolutely. And remember, we're covering these in the context of relationships. So when you're looking for that potential person to spend the rest of your life with. It is very important, at least in my opinion, that you're looking to make sure that the person that you choose and select is a person of great love for humanity, great love for self, great love for others in general. Because as we decided here and discussed a minute ago, if a person chooses randomly who they love, then eventually you can fall into that trap. So make sure that the person that you select as a person to spend time with cares about themselves, cares about you, and cares about humanity in general. Sean?
I think that too many people, especially in today's day and age, they mistake infatuation, that feeling. Like I think Steve said, that first feeling was an intense liking, or how was it worded?
Yeah.
It was like an intense liking for someone or something.
Let's see, an intense feeling of deep affection.
Yeah, that intense feeling, deep affection. That, people don't get confused. I think infatuation is what they mistake that for love sometimes. And then when they get into a relationship and it becomes exclusive and long term, and the infatuation part, where naturally fades and subsides, then they're like, oh, what happened? The spark is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not in love with the person. Their infatuation's gone. Now they're like, who's this?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What else is there? All right. Very good. Let's move on to principle number 2, which is compassion. Definition of compassion: concern for the sufferings or misfortunes of others. Now, the opposite of compassion is indifference or cruelty. I don't think we need to get too much into this, but this can be a problem.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And compassion, deep caring, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it is compassion that is a very, very distinct quality in a person, because there is no indifference. Everyone matters. And having the sense to be compassionate, the existence of being compassionate, is something beautiful. And we see that. I can think of someone that sacrifices for all, like Mother Teresa.
I was just thinking
Okay,
There you
right?
go.
Compassion in its purest form. Now, you're not going to find Mother Teresa probably on
your first date
on POF.com,
yeah.
but you should certainly look for that quality in a person. It serves well for relationships.
Absolutely.
I imagine this. A lot of this is foreign to a lot of people.
It is.
The people that are out there that think they're players or whatever. I imagine that this is a foreign language to them. Words like compassion, love.
Yeah. And the next one that we're going into here, temperament.
Number 3.
So go ahead,
Temperament.
PA. Temperament.
Temperament. What does that mean? Well, here's a definition: a person's nature, especially as it permanently affects their behavior. The common example I see here is the tendency to behave angrily or emotionally. Now, I think we all can relate to someone having a bad temper.
Mm-hmm.
That's where that word comes from. This all kind of relates. I think that the words that describe a good temperament are things like calm, rational, reasonable. But we're talking about maybe the other side of the coin, Doctor.
We are. And I know that the listeners out there can relate, because we've all had relationships where temperament played a not so good role in. Temperament can ruin even the best of intents in relationships. But I tell you, a wise person would not engage in relationships, especially serious ones, where they can detect temperament. It is not healthy. So we are arming you with the knowledge of this principle that is so important for successful relationships. If you see a temper in people, if you're driving down the street with someone and road rage takes over, and there's obscenity and hand signs, you know, that are
international peace
sign.
Yes, and those kind of things. It's a sure sign that eventually it's going to creep up into the relationship if it's not already done it. So, temperament. You know, how do you want your children raised? How do you want someone to behave in public? How do you want to be treated at home? Life is not perfect. When stress hits is when our true selves are revealed. And when our true selves are revealed, which, you know, can take 5 minutes or a couple of months, but when you see these signs, it's a ticket to get right out.
Head for the hills.
Head for the hills. Okay. Yep. So, Sean, anything on temperament?
Yeah, I think that that's a valid point. You know, I think we all lose our cool at some point under certain situations. I think we've all lost our cool, but I think when it becomes like an ongoing, I think everybody's allowed a bad day. You know what I mean? I don't think that's what we're trying to talk about here. We're talking about someone it's a part of who they are. This is how they react to,
absolutely,
a flat tire, someone cut them off, or a traffic jam, you know, that if they're, losing their cool on everything, then sooner or later they're going to lose their cool on you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right. That's right. All right. So let's move on to principle number 4, industry, or to be industrious.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going with the second definition here.
Mm-hmm.
And that definition is hard work, activity, energy, vigor, productiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the opposite here is very revealing.
Mm-hmm.
You do want somebody that's industrious, because the opposite is lazy.
Yeah.
Or inactive.
Yes.
I don't know who wants that, doctor.
Non-productive.
Mm-mm.
We don't. We know that rent is one of the biggest reasons people, break up.
Got to pay that rent.
Got to pay the rent. Got to fill the gas tank. Got to put something in the refrigerator. And then when kids come into the picture, things get really complicated, right? Because now you need money for athletic, outfits and shoes and
the latest, greatest.
The latest and greatest, right? So yeah, hardworking, industrious, production. It's all a necessary part of a relationship.
How does one apply that to the early on, and during the courtship phase of a relationship? How does one apply that? Because someone could be industrious and they could be a workaholic.
Mm-hmm.
When do you determine that someone's working too much and they're not available?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're dating someone, they have to be available, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they also have to have resources, to a certain extent. So how does one determine?
Well, let's start with the first thing. Most people break up for not having enough money. Yes, there are some that don't break up for lack of attention.
So finances and debt.
But finances, if you take it in a priority, finances are very important, at least in being able to stay together. Yes, there are people that lack, the ability to spend time with family, especially enough, right? And so that's an issue in and of itself. But if you don't get out of bed, right, to get the basic assignments done, then we're going to have issues.
Right, but I'm talking more about not just that part. So they're working, they have a job, but they're working all the time. They're industrious to the point where they've got 2 or 3 things going on, maybe 2 jobs, or maybe a side hustle or something like that. When is that like a sign that maybe that's not industrial, where it crosses from that to something else?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Where they're just a workaholic.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of got to be careful of that too, right?
Yes, we do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, guys, let's move on to principle number 5, collaboration. This is the action of working with someone to produce or create something. I think we can all figure out that that's a good thing, especially if you're in a relationship.
Yeah.
But let me stress the opposite of someone who would collaborate. Division, separation, non-cooperation, disunion.
That says it all.
Don't want any of that.
No, we don't. You know, and flat out, a couple has to collaborate.
Yep.
They have to participate in unity. They have to coexist. It's called synergy. We do expect individuals to be independent, but we also expect them to live an interdependent life. And interdependency, which is the highest level of the human condition, right? Learning to live with others effectively. It's a very hard thing to do, but it's a must if you want truly rich, great relationships.
That great relationship, absolutely.
Right.
That's
so
what the show's about.
collaboration is a must. You know, we have to be able to play in the sandbox with all the kids, right? So yes, make sure that the person that you choose to spend time with believes in unity, believes in synergy, believes in accomplishing together. That's the principle of collaboration. That's what you're looking for. Sean, you got any?
No, I was going to say that's you know, the older I get, the more I realize how important that is. You know, in all of your relationships, not just your significant other.
Sure.
In life in general, we got to be able to work with each other.
Yes.
Whether it's a coworker, a teammate, a spouse.
Play nice, right?
Let's get together and do something.
I don't normally like
special.
the word nice, but in this sense, play nice when you're in a sandbox, right?
There you go.
Get with the team.
Don't throw sand in my pants.
Right.
Okay?
All right, we go to the next one here.
Okay, the next one here. Now this is funny because it's not funny, but we need to talk about it. Honesty is our next principle. Now, obviously, I think many of us know that word. The definition here I've got is the quality of being honest. And synonyms are integrity, uprightness, honorableness, honor, morality, and it goes on and on and on. Honesty is so important in this world. And the opposite, dishonesty. Well, who wants a dishonest partner in anything? Doctor, shed some light on this.
Wow. I'm sitting here shaking my head, and I knew you were going to ask me to participate, and I still shook my head, as silly as that sounds. I tell you, you know, honesty is so foundational, so imperative.
It's the best policy, right?
It's the best policy. It's the best policy. And, you know, honesty is very, very closely related to trust. And we've all heard it. We cannot function or be with or work with effectively with someone we don't trust. But, you know, we see time and time again, relationships.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
remain
yes.
steadfast.
Oh, yes.
In the midst of dishonesty. Yeah. Don't ask me how that happens. But I mean, you tell me. Is there?
No. I
what
can
is there about
this.
that misery that they continue to?
I don't think
play
that you know, the question about trust.
Right.
That I agree with that 100% because it starts with trust. If someone proves themselves to be dishonest, they prove themselves to be dishonest. It'll be revealed. But if we don't start with trust, and I'm speaking from personal experience as of late, I had a problem with that, and it got me in a lot of trouble. So very important, and I mean, it's just, I almost would think it gives you a sense of calm when you feel that that's what you have in that dynamic of that relationship.
I agree.
There is honesty.
And wouldn't you guys agree that most times, you know, you figure out if a person's honest pretty quickly?
Yeah, you do.
Because they dodge things, they disappear for a day or two, or they're not responding or responsive.
Their characters revealed through their actions.
Quickly,
A lot of signals.
Would you not say?
A lot of signals.
A lot of signals.
Yep.
Huh. All right.
All right. Well, that's honesty.
Honesty.
And, yeah, that's a big one. All right. The next one. This is a good one. Courage.
Yes.
The principle of courage. Definition. The ability to do something that frightens one. I like this second part better. Strength in the face of pain or grief. I'm thinking of the cowardly lion here from The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Courage.
Yeah.
But here's the opposite of courage.
Uh-huh.
Cowardice.
Mm.
I'm looking for a coward.
Yeah.
That'd be a great partner.
Yeah, right?
Big chicken.
Yeah, I got to tell you that courage plays a role that is almost, it's monumental in the success role of a relationship. Courage is the ability to be able to communicate in the toughest of situations, toughest of conditions, the truth, and do it with temperament. So that, it may be vital to have that conversation. You don't want to bottle it in, and it scares most people to bring it up.
So it's not always like a David versus Goliath situation. To be
absolutely
courageous
not.
Or encouraged.
No. The most courageous people on this earth believe in peace, not war, not fighting. This is not a fight or flight. This is courage. This is where you take it to the table and you talk as two adults with the understanding that the goal here is to succeed in the relationship. Right?
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Not to add fire to the fuel.
Right. It's not a matter of who won an argument or a misunderstanding or a disagreement.
In fact, the coward wants to win, always.
Right.
You
they can't accept that they're not.
Exactly.
Yeah, they can't accept the terms of
they're not right.
Yeah, them not being right.
Right? And so then there's lack of communication, etc. But a courageous person is willing to be wrong, but is willing also to work out, situations for it to continue. So I think it's time for our next break. Is that correct?
Are we close to that time now?
Yes, we're about ready for that.
Pretty close. Okay.
All right. Well, let me just share with you guys that you're listening to The Dating Doctor on KCAA 1050 AM, 102.3 and 106.5 FM in the Inland Empire. And I also want to mention to you that The Dating Doctor is also brought to you by Single Mingle Events, where we bring you the best events to meet quality singles. Look forward to these events.
Single Mingle Events.
Sounds fun. I want to go.
That sounds tempting.
I'm a single guy here. I'm the single guy.
I know. I'm going to have to bring my wife just so we can people watch.
What and where? The Single Mingle Events.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that in the future here.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Could be some fun.
All right. So are we at that time yet, or do we have time?
I think we can kind of go to the wrap it up here pretty soon. I just wanted to add to some of these what you were saying.
Yeah.
About the courage, and I don't think people think of that as courage. I think that people see that as something else, and I think it's important that they do see that as courage. When you're talking about compromise, is the word that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it takes courage to compromise.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have if they don't have a willingness to compromise, then obviously it's all going to end right there.
Yeah.
Because it kind of cuts to the core of collaboration too. So all these things are kind of, what you said, interdependent, or how'd you say it earlier about
they're interdependent. They work with one another, and they're best in the gumbo, so to speak.
Yeah, it's interesting how the whole thing put together, makes up the integrity of a person.
Yeah,
kind of it does.
And don't let's not get this twisted. Kindness and peace and honesty, all of that takes great courage. Great courage, because the easy thing to do is be a coward,
right?
And to not be honest, and to not be kind and lose your temper on a whim. But to have integrity to principles takes great courage, great thought, great wisdom.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
So we will go ahead and dive right into our break, and then we will be back to cover the next set of our foundational 12. All right. Thank you for being with us, and we'll talk to you in a second here. Thank you.
You must understand the touch of your hand makes my pulse react. That it's only the thrill of boy meeting girl opposites attract. It's physical, only logical. You must try to ignore that it means more than that. Oh, what's love got to do with it? What's love but a second-hand emotion? What's love got to do with it? Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? It may seem to you that I'm acting confused when you're close to me. If I tend to look dazed, I read it someplace. I've got cause to be. There's a name for it. There's a phrase that fits. But whatever the reason, you do it for me. Oh, what's love got to do with it? What's love but a second-hand emotion? What's love got to do with it? Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? I've been taking on a new direction, but I have to say, I've been thinking about my own protection. It scares me to feel this way. Oh, what's love got to do with it? What's love but a second-hand emotion? What's love got to do with it? Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? What's love got to do with it? What's love but a sweet old-fashioned notion? What's love got to do with it? Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? What's love got to do with it? What's love a second-hand emotion? What's love got to do with it? Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken?
So we're talking about kindness, right? And kindness is not what most people think it is. You know, most people mistake kindness for being nice.
Or weak.
You can call it that also. And I'll tell you, kindness is far from like and is far from weak. It's strong and it deals more with being respected than it does with being liked.
I agree.
Because a person that is kind is also very honest. I always liken it to if you see a friend standing on a railroad track and there's a high-speed train coming down that track, would you remove them from the track?
Yes.
Yes. And see, that would look like a kind act. But let me ask you another question. If you see a friend that's doing something destructive in behavior, language, not standing on the railroad track, but maybe doing something wrong at work, or doing something in relationships, or doing something at home with their children. They're doing things that aren't correct. Are you kind enough? Do you love them enough? Do you respect them enough to have the courage to discuss this behavior with them so they can fix it? And most people, because they want to be liked and want to avoid the situation,
Yeah, the messy.
they don't bring up and they don't address it. So kindness is not weak, right? And not like. It's tough, and it's respect.
It's a very interesting
Take
on it. Yeah, it's not the knee jerk what comes to mind, but when you see it that way, I mean, you make a good point.
I think that when I think of kindness,
Mhm.
and this is something that I've struggled with, if I'm trying to live a principle-centered life,
Mhm.
and I want to adhere to these,
Mhm.
our foundational 12, kindness is a huge one, because the reaction to something that I don't like could be very easy an unkind reaction.
Mhm.
And if I'm measuring myself against these principles,
Mhm.
I know what kindness looks like versus what unkind looks like.
Absolutely.
So it's almost just a way of filtering things through those glasses that we watch our world with.
Yeah.
And being kind is a big deal. I mean, let's not minimize this. I think this is very important. If we were all running around kind in a common state of mind, imagine the world and how much better it could be, just because we're being kind to each other.
Sure.
All right, so let's move on, guys. Our next principle, and this is a huge one, it's the principle of being disciplined or discipline. Now, there's many definitions to this word. I like this second one that comes up, the controlled behavior resulting from discipline. Another, activity or experience that provides mental or physical training. I think that if you don't possess the principle of discipline, how can you expect to reach any level of quality in literally anything in your life? So this is foundational as more than anything maybe in this entire list. And the opposite of disciplined is undisciplined.
That's just an ugly, just the word.
That just sounds
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah, there's little achievement, right, without discipline.
There's none.
Yeah, so, listen, the entire concept, why we are on air, is long-lasting preservation of relationships, right? So discipline, when you're choosing someone, you got to make sure that they apply discipline. Discipline in work, discipline in the relationship, and discipline in self. Because we talked about it. You want good health, and do you want somebody that cares about good health? Well, it takes discipline. Discipline to eat right, discipline to work out, right?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
What about the area of finance? Do you think it takes discipline there,
absolutely.
right? Discipline to get up in the morning,
Go to work.
and then while you're there, to focus and apply that
Be
discipline
productive.
to produce, to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
So discipline, absolutely. And also, in raising children, discipline plays a big role,
Huge.
right? You cannot raise a child with love only. You have to apply equal shares of discipline and love. And believe me, children crave it.
They do.
They want the structure.
I mean, I don't know how many times have we walked into like someone's house, like a coworker, or somebody you're working with, and it just you guys going to do something after work. You go to their house, and the kids are just complete like it's chaos. They open the door to let you in, and just from the moment you step into the house, it's chaos. Like the kids are running the show, loud, got toys everywhere.
Yeah.
Jumping up and down on furniture.
Sure.
And your coworkers telling them to be quiet or settle down or stop it.
Yeah.
Go in your room and they don't listen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that to me is.
Yeah. And it's not to say that, by no means are we saying don't let children be children. Hey,
No.
we were all children and we liked playing and,
Yep.
and doing the do. But there's also, discipline is a true principle and applies to all of us at all times. And when we don't abide by it, then there's consequences, right?
Mm-hmm.
So something to keep in mind. But this is definitely a principle you got to watch for, because you want the person you're with to possess it.
I would think. Yes, sir. All right, so we're moving on to the next principle, and I keep saying this is a good one. This is a big one, but they're all good ones. They're all important. Respect, the principle of respect.
Man.
And what stands out to me is the opposite here. This definition that I have literally has five or six antonyms, the opposite of respect. So let me give you the definition here. A feeling of deep admiration for someone or something elicited by their abilities, qualities, or achievements. I want to focus on just their qualities. We're all different. We all possess different qualities. Accepting each other and understanding that those qualities are them. And if you're looking at them in that way, of that potential mate, you better be open to accepting those qualities.
Yeah.
The opposites of respect: contempt. I want a contemptuous relationship. Disrespect, obviously. Despise, scorn, disregard. Awful words.
Yeah.
So nobody wants any of that.
Yeah,
guys.
For me, disrespect is probably the largest pet peeve or thing that would anger me the fastest.
Yeah.
Is disrespect.
Yeah.
And whether it be in the workplace.
Yeah.
And in my relationships, disrespect will get me. You really want to get my attention? Disrespect me. You got it. And it's not the attention you want.
Yeah. That's when you lose your temperament, right?
Yes.
See, this is why we're teaching this. We want to make sure that the person has wholesome, application to their integrity, right? So respect is man. This is scuba gear stuff here.
Deep.
You got to go deep, and you won't survive it. You got to have enough oxygen when you're dealing with these kind of things in your tank. Because this ain't wading pool material here.
No.
This is
definitely not.
Yeah, this
You're in a
is deep
submarine.
sea.
You're in a submarine on these.
You may see a grouper when you're out with these things here. But respect, I tell you, respect is something that I've always taught it this way. I do not want to be liked. I would rather be respected. But that statement takes an unbelievable amount of courage, because being liked is easy. Just say the right thing, even if it's not honest.
Just go along.
Just go along and be, like Grandma said, if you ain't got nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all.
Oh yeah.
Listen, that's conventional, and it doesn't actually work, right? Because when you need things done, you have to address things.
You might need to point a few things out from time to time.
Yeah. And so being respected is a byproduct of courage. And respecting someone, having the courage to respect someone is very, very close to love, that big overarching principle.
Yeah, I like
respecting
that.
Someone.
Makes a lot of sense.
Right?
I think that's part of the reason why that one bothers me, being disrespected, is when people show lack of respect, because I believe I give people a certain amount of respect going, just for meeting them and just, person to person. And then, it's up to them basically to lose that respect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you say respect is earned. Yes, in certain theories, sometimes a certain amount of respect should be given just out of being courteous.
Yeah.
You know.
And let me add this. This is something I'd like for everybody to know. You know, we don't want to lose our blessings because somebody else, you know, acts a certain way. So yeah, they may behave in a way where they're violating principles, but really, if we want to remain effective and to have the fruits of being principle-centered, then we must always remain obedient to this, regardless of how others behave.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
So in the face of turmoil, of someone else violating these principles, the toughest test that we will ever face is, can we remain steadfast and with integrity, with the courage to keep these principles in our arsenal, and we don't lose our temperament. We don't lose our head. We don't disrespect.
Be that example.
Be that example.
Be that example.
Right? So when you choose someone, make sure they are respectful and that they don't pick and choose who to respect. That is not acceptable, in my opinion. In my opinion.
These are universal principles.
These are universal.
Universal means something, right?
It does.
It ain't just in El Monte.
Yes.
All right.
That's right.
Okay, guys, I want to mention here that you are listening to The Dating Doctor on KCAA 1050 AM, 102.3 and 106.5 FM in the Inland Empire. All right, gentlemen, moving on. We are now at number 11 of our foundational principles, and this is patience. Patience. They say patience is a virtue. Do they say that?
Yes, they do.
Did you hear that
Yes, they
somewhere?
do.
I think
Yes,
I
they
heard
do.
that somewhere.
They do.
Definition of patience, coming from an impatient person like myself, I should read this maybe more than once. The capacity to accept or tolerate delay, trouble, or suffering without getting angry or upset. I think we can recognize someone who is impatient, and the opposite of patience is impatience.
Yeah.
Doctor, tell us about this.
Well, patience is self-explanatory. You know, it deals with so many of the things that we covered today. But basically, you don't lose your cool, and you also believe in the potential of people. So you apply patience, and that is a good thing for relationships. So,
I agree.
yeah. Well, let's go into personal development and wrap it up.
We'll wrap it up with
Number
personal
12.
development. Technically, personal development is not a principle in terms of the words as we're looking at them as individual words. So I pulled a definition that I think is pretty sharp. And it says, personal development is a lifelong process. It is a way for people to assess their skills and qualities, consider their aims in life, and set goals in order to realize and maximize their potential. You want to plan to make relevant, positive, and effective life choices and decisions for your future. And this will enable you to develop personal empowerment.
Okay, that's perfect. So personal development, as I see it, is also the principle of growth. So believing in the ability to continually improve on your knowledge, on your wisdom, on everything that you need to be a better human on earth. So,
Getting better.
you know, with that, I want to say thanks for joining us this week. It was a great season 1, episode 2 scenario here for us, and from me, Carlos Mendez, the dating doctor, Steve Estrada, the physician assistant, and our guest, Sean Sneap, we say goodbye.